Hi. If you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that you've already learned a little bit about ratios. You know what they are. They're comparing two numbers. And you've probably already learned a little bit about proportions and how to solve them. And now you are ready to take what you've learned and apply it to something real world. So a real world situation often has something called a rate. And a rate is just a proportion, or a rate is just a ratio that has two different units because you're comparing two different units. So in this case, 3 miles represent, 2 inches represent 3 miles. So that is a rate because those units are different. Now, in order to solve this proportion, we don't have to convert to the same units. We just have to be able to set up a proportion that is consistent, and I will show you what I mean in just 1 second. Okay, so let's just do it. Let's jump in. All right, so here we have that on a map, 2 inches represent 3 miles. Now we are looking at the map and we see two locations, and those two locations on the map is 7.5 inches apart. And we want to know what the actual distance is between the location. Okay, so when you are setting up this proportion, what you want to do is make sure that you are keeping your units in to make sure things make sense initially. So here we have that 2 inches, and I'll write it in fraction form. 2 inches is equal, or 2 inches is being compared to 3 miles. Okay, and we know that 7.5 inches is the same comparison to some unknown number of miles. We don't know, and that's what they're asking for. So now we actually have two proportions that are equivalent to each other, and we just do not know what this value is. Now, inches, make sure that inches are across from inches and the miles are across from miles. If they were crisscrossed, then you know you did something wrong. So inches across from inches, miles across from miles. Another way to set this up would be to have inches above inches and miles above miles, but we're not going to do that today. Inches across from inches, miles across from miles. Okay, great. Now that we have that, now we are ready to cross multiply or solve in whichever way you prefer, but my preference is cross multiplication, that butterfly here. So we are going to go ahead and multiply the top left by the bottom right, and we get 2 times x. Now I want to point out the fact that I do not have units in this step. I don't want it to be confusing. I don't want it to look confusing. So after I do the initial setup, I no longer need to put my units. All right, and so that is going to be equal to, now we do the bottom left and the top right, and we multiply those values, and we get 7.5 times 3. All right, so now we can go ahead and simplify our right side. And when we multiply those two numbers on the right side, we get 22.5. And on the left side, we just have 2x. Now we're trying to isolate our x. And so since it's being multiplied by 2, we have to do the opposite of multiplying by 2. We have to go ahead and divide by 2 on both sides. And we get that x is equal to 11.25. Now, the question was asking about what's the actual distance between the locations. We cannot just put the answer as 11.25, even though we dropped the units earlier to help us ourselves not be confused. We do have to go back, read the question, and recall that we were trying to find the number of miles. And so we have to make sure that we go ahead and put our units back on to our final answer at the end. Our two locations are 11.25 miles apart. And that's it.